more for everything. So people will have to be more wary of their spending and see when they should go out to eat and maybe when to cook at home.
They're on again, they're off again, then they're on again. We're talking about tariffs and some of the exemptions from them.
Yeah, one thing that is definitely on are concerns about the effect the tariffs could have on people's jobs, businesses, and paychecks here in our region.
Yeah, it's especially being felt in a place that has a lot of Chinese imports, Chinatown. James Ford, well, he has those details for us.
We'll start with this. Virtually everything in this shop was made in China, and this is not an exception here in Chinatown. And merchants here say that what gets affected by the China tariffs here really affects stores and businesses across the region. Nearly everything you see and taste here at Namhua Tea House in Chinatown has some kind of connection to China. 145% tariffs on Chinese goods have an effect on everyone in this 105-year-old institution, from customers to management to staff.
Well, it means everybody pays a little more for everything. So people will have to be more wary of their spending and see when they should go out to eat and maybe when to cook at home. Then we have a few less customers every week, a few less customers every day.
That adds up to financial losses, says the owner of this Manhattan Chinatown dim sum restaurant. He also says that from the plates to takeout containers to sauces and other ingredients, a lot comes from China. President Donald Trump late last week made exemptions to the 145% China tariffs for semiconductors, computer chips, smartphones, and other electronics. What Chinatown business people say they also need the president to do?
Add dried goods, add food products, add ingredients into the exceptions list.
That kind of request was echoed in places like Grand Tea and Imports. Both of those things, it's tea and imports, come from China. The owner of this imports and tea shop was with members of Congress Grace Meng and Dan Goldman on Monday, calling for China tariffs to be lifted, at least temporarily. And if not, the shop owner says,
you'll see less people employed. You'll see just maybe less hours. You'll see empty shelves on supermarkets.
These shelves are full of everyday herbs and spices like this cinnamon here, items that you would find on your shelves. And merchants here say if these go up in price here, they are sure to do the same at your local supermarket. They want these tariffs to be dropped as soon as possible. Reporting from Chinatown in Manhattan, I'm James Ford, Pix 11 News.
And the Trump administration's tariffs had been in effect since early last year.
Yeah, Pix 7's Giovanni Diaz is live in Midtown tonight with some response from local businesses to today's Supreme Court ruling. Gio.
Hey, Corey, yeah, and those tariffs, the global tariffs that we're just talking about, they can only remain in effect for 150 days. After that, Congress would have to act. And in the meantime, while this whole thing unfolds, local business owners are telling me they're concerned about their future.
We have had to raise prices on tools.
Most of the items sold at this woodworking shop in Park Slope, Brooklyn, come from Japan. So the owner says tariffs hit him hard.
The shipping company let us know that there was an extra amount of money that they covered for us, but we had no capital at that point to pay an extra $2,000. And so I wound up putting it on a credit card, and I'm still paying that off.
Since early 2025, President Donald Trump has imposed the extra taxes on imports from our biggest trade partners. American consumers have since been paying extra for products coming from countries like China, Canada, Mexico, Brazil. But on Friday, things took a turn.
The Supreme Court invalidate the bulk of the president's tariffs.
Here's what happened. After small businesses started suing the government, that legal challenge went all the way to the Supreme Court. Justices then decided the president did not have the power to impose the fees without congressional approval. The result, tariffs were deemed illegal, and all the money paid extra should go back to companies and consumers.
There are some products we're just never going to really grow here. Certain types of coffee, bananas. We're not going to have a whole lot of domestic production of products like that, but we've got tariffs on them anyway. And so what ends up happening is American consumers and businesses pay for something that you'll never be able to reshore.
The president is now reacting, announcing temporary 10% global tariffs using a different legal strategy. So for small business owners, the concern goes on.
I'm starting a GoFundMe campaign to help us expand and stay afloat, in addition to looking for business loans or lines of credit. I do not know how to move forward.
A lot of concern tonight. And here's the thing. A study conducted by Congress found out that last year American families spent on average $1,200 more because of the tariffs. Again, the Supreme Court said that that money needs to go back to the consumers and companies, but so far the White House has not announced how they're going to do that. Reporting live in Midtown tonight, I'm Giovanni Diaz, Pix 11 News. Corey, Shirley.
And things that could get more expensive include produce, meat, dairy, beer, liquor, electronics, auto parts, cars, lumber, steel, gas, and oil. Meanwhile, the White House is saying that the tariffs will remain in place until, quote, the crisis is alleviated.
Chilies, any, seeds, jamaica, tamarindos, different kind of peppers, avocados.
All of this comes from Mexico?
Yes. It's like every 2 weeks. We try keeping everything fully stocked as much as possible.
But for Heidi Sempualto Alcalde and Gabriel Flores, keeping the shelves stocked of their family-owned business, Don Gabriel in Astoria, Queens, will now be more challenging after President Donald Trump imposed a 25% tariff on all goods coming from Mexico and Canada, excluding Canadian energy products, which will face a 10% tariff. He also implemented a 10% tax on imports from China.
So it's kind of hard because, us as a business, we also have to try to make a profit to kind of bring more stuff in. You also don't want to put it so expensive for the customer to want to buy.
Let's just take Super Bowl Sunday, okay? It's going to affect beer, okay? Most of it, Corona here, comes from Mexico. It's going to affect your guac, because what is guacamole made of? Avocados, both from Mexico.
New York Senator Chuck Schumer said he's working on a bipartisan legislation that will stop what he's calling a trading war that will cut down the paycheck of hardworking Americans, such as Gary and his family.
Obviously, it's going to be heavy on the pockets too, so it's definitely it's going to affect the middle class.
For President Trump, this is a way of protecting the border, and there is no turning back.
We'll possibly very substantially increase it. We're not. We'll see how it is. We've suffered with millions of criminals coming into our country. Criminals, people from jails from all over the world. They come through Mexico, and they come through Canada too. A lot of them come through Canada, and a lot of fentanyl comes through Canada, and China makes the fentanyl.
The three biggest U.S. trading partners, however, are not staying quiet. Mexico and Canada will impose retaliating tariffs on U.S. imports. China is looking to file a lawsuit with the World Trade Organization for the, quote, wrongful practices of the U.S. Back in Astoria, Queens, Gustavo Ruchima, who was on his way to buy some Mexican bread, says the tariffs are simply a bad move.
Now the economy is no good, no jobs. So if you have to pay more, this is not good.
And China, Canada, and Mexico accounted for more than 40% of all the imports here in the United States last year. In Astoria, I'm Eliezer Marte, Pix 11 News.
Hopping on one of these Citi Bikes is going to cost you more in fees per minute starting next month and $20 more for an annual membership. Citi Bike citing the impact of tariffs as a reason for that increase. Citi Bike shifting gears in 2026.
Not great.
And regular riders sharing how they're feeling ahead of the climb in costs, building on increases over the last few years.
So it all adds up.
Effective January 28th, an annual membership will cost $239, up from $219.99. Member e-bike fees and classic bike overage fees are also going up on January 5th, from 25 cents per minute to 27 cents in the city. For single riders and day passers, those fees will increase from 38 cents per minute to 41 cents.
It adds to all your commuting expenses. And I really think the bike should be subsidized by the city, because it really helps take the load off the rest of the services. So we're putting less wear and tear on the subways and the buses. So let's hope I'm done he's hearing this.
Citi Bike says, quote, unexpected tariffs in 2025 impose substantial ongoing costs on operations. We absorbed the cost this year, but were unable to shoulder them long term. The bike share system, owned by Lyft, also says it's dealing with rising costs in insurance, service vehicles, and field staffing.
Everything else, not just transportation, but everything is going up a little bit, so I guess that's inflation.
In announcing the increases, Citi Bike highlighting work to expand its network with 250 new stations across the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn, along with upgrading equipment and bikes.
Most of them, not some, but most of them are not really in a good shape.
Some riders rolling with the changes.
If they work on the quality of the bike, that is worth.
It's definitely annoying, but I mean, it's not going to affect how much I ride.
What's not changing for members, skipping those unlock fees, unlimited 45-minute classic bike rides, and 60 free e-bike minutes. Reporting in Midtown, I'm Angelo Bavar, Pix 11 News.
As its name written on the sign implies, this shop has become a fixture of the Upper West Side. But a national and international issue is leading to its closure. It's a toy store, but as its name indicates, it's built its reputation by supporting the people the toys were made for.
Your parents have bought you stuff from a certain store your whole life is going to shut down. I'm devastated.
Tarini Apte is one of the kids, thousands of them, who've come to West Side Kids since it opened 4.5 decades ago, but it's closing at the end of the month.
The thought that went into picking what was sold here is what makes it really sad.
The store became an institution here on the Upper West Side and beyond.
I have a 46-year-old son, and when he was a baby, we lived on the east side. I used to buy all the toys that she had from Italy and Spain and Britain.
By having quality toys from around the world, the store built a strong reputation, and it's part of why it's closing.
It doesn't really matter where it's made. There's going to be a tariff attached to it somewhere. So, how do you even manage that?
Jennifer Bergman owns the store her mother founded. Her situation, says the editor-in-chief of the leading toy industry publication, is the result of a national policy.
We are taking in, as a country, a lot of money that's going into that account from the tariffs, but it is U.S. small business owners, and they are paying this tax.
What that means back at the shop.
So everybody came rushing in, and with a sad, you sorry to see you go stories.
A steady stream of customers right now.
I love that, sense of community, and I mean, just look at this giant dog.
It's for more than just kids and their parents, and in 3 weeks, it will all be gone.
I'm sorry that the neighborhood is losing us. I am. I'm truly sorry.
In full disclosure, I've been a customer of this shop for years. Its owner, she prefers to be called proprietor, says she hopes to have pop-up or street or trade fair sales going forward. Reporting from the Upper West Side, I'm James Ford, Pix 11 News.
I was looking forward to donning it, but perfect for fall.
Cameron Watson was all excited to get this new jacket from an online retailer based in Spain. He paid $150 and $29 for UPS shipping. But when it arrived, the UPS delivery man told him he owed another $55.
For tariffs and fees, which was a huge shock to me. I didn't realize that it had happened. I would have thought I had paid that up front when I made the transaction.
The UPS driver said it had to be paid by check or he couldn't get his package. Watson checked the UPS app and it allowed him to avoid a $12 UPS surcharge and pay $44 for the tariffs. Still, the total cost to Watson, $224.
That's 50% more than the actual item that I wanted to get.
A UPS spokesperson confirms this is all part of the changes to the U.S. tariff system. As of August 29th, the exemption went away for items under $800 entering the U.S. That means either the retailer or you, the consumer, has to pay the customs fee. UPS says it's been encouraging online retailers to make it clear at the time of purchase who is paying the tariff and how much it will be. UPS goes on to say if the shipper or receiver have not paid these costs or there are changes while the shipment is in transit, UPS generates a bill so the shipment can be released by CBP, or Customs and Border Protection.
I'm always hearing that the customer isn't going to have to pay for these types of things, but apparently you're on the hook for it.
And the kicker for Watson, the jacket doesn't even fit.
So now I'm like contemplating, do I send it back? If I send this back, am I paying tariffs going both ways?
Good morning to both of you. Yes, no doubt, President Donald Trump said that Americans could be feeling some pain, and it would be as soon as by the end of the week. These tariffs kick in on Tuesday, and it could be felt for Americans from anything from gas to groceries. We're here at the Vince Lombardi bus stop as all of these trucks are carrying shipments. Anything on the trucks coming from Canada or Mexico or China will actually go up in price as mostly tariffs are passed down to the consumer. Canadians are also not impressed. Listen. You can hear those boos, right? From the NHL to the NBA, Canadian sports fans booed our national anthem as tariffs are set to launch on Tuesday. Citing the flow of fentanyl and undocumented immigrants into the U.S., Trump announcing a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada, excluding Canadian energy products, which would face a 10% tariff. China also hit with a 10% tariff. Mexico, Canada, and China together accounted for more than 40% of all imports here in the United States last year. Canada hitting back with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods. Listen.
Suffered with millions of criminals coming into our country. Criminals, people from jails from all over the world. They come through Mexico and they come through Canada too. A lot of them come through Canada, and a lot of fentanyl comes through Canada, and China makes the fentanyl. We'll possibly very substantially increase it. We're not. We'll see how it is.
Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
China says they'll be filing a lawsuit with the World Trade Organization, and Mexico says that they'll be planning to hit back with tariffs themselves. Coming up in the next hour of the Pix 11 Morning News, Senator Chuck Schumer says he's working on bipartisan legislation to stop what he calls a trade war. We're live at the Vince Lombardi bus stop in New Jersey. I'm Cala Rama, Pix 11 News.
8:32 and a potential trade war averted, at least for now, with Canada and Mexico. But a 10% tariff on goods from China is now in effect.
So the impact on New Yorkers could add up to thousands of dollars.
At a time when families are so frustrated with the cost of everything so high and inflation has been so cruel to them, now to be facing, and I've read different economists' estimates, anything from $1,300 to $3,300 for a family of four in higher costs, we have to stand up and say this is wrong.
So President Trump is expected to hop on a call in the coming days with Chinese President Xi Jinping. But until then, how much will these tariffs actually cost us? Well, here to do the math is NYU economics professor Joseph Foudy. Professor, thanks so much for being with us this morning. I appreciate your time. First, I want to ask you, 10% doesn't seem so bad when you look at 25%, but can you kind of give us the big picture on how much this will affect our wallets?
Yeah, so I mean, China's likely to let its currency sort of depreciate to offset this as well. I think the problem is in a world where we're just recovering from this sort of bout of inflation, every little piece adds up. And, you know, New York alone imports about $20 billion worth of goods from China a year. That's in everything you buy at a local Target. The other thing to remember is every company that competes with those Chinese imports, we know from past experience, if they have to raise their price by $1, those competing companies use that as an excuse to raise their prices as well. And that really hits people who are working class. If you think about who spends the most on clothing, furniture, toys, the worst.
And pretty soon we'll see the sticker impact on the shelves too. More than half of the shoes sold in the U.S. are made in China. How quickly could we see the price of shoes, for example, go up?
Yeah, so my guess is we'll start to see that in a couple of weeks. And remember, the other 50% that comes from other countries, they're likely to use this as an excuse to raise them as well. Now, the good news is if you buy a $200 sort of pair of Air Jordans, it might only be imported at $20 or $30, so that the tariff is not going to hit you as hard as you think. But again, it adds up. The other thing we know is, companies are always faster to raise prices than lower them. So we may start to see sort of a reaction faster than we think.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned sneakers. I mean, what if your kid plays sports? Yeah. How much is that going to affect?
Yeah, that's going to hit you on all of that equipment that's imported. The other thing to remember too is, New York actually produces sports equipment. Those firms are importing raw materials. And what you're going to see is that that's actually going to hit some employment in the costs of stuff that we buy locally. New York has firms that are selling stuff across the world and across the rest of the U.S.
Yeah, but we need those materials. That's the issue. Yeah.
Another big concern too is the perhaps potential tariffs from Mexico and Canada. 30-day pauses on both of them for now, but that could impact food that comes through the Bronx. Hunt's Point. When you talk about the markup on the shoes alone, with food, with that higher tariff rate, how could that impact consumers?
Yeah, so that's going to hit you as well. And obviously, what you spend at a grocery store is something that you see every week coming out of your paycheck. The tariffs on Canada, if they go into effect, that's far, far more significant. That's 25%. But also, we have an integrated supply chain with Canada. We're importing and exporting $20 billion plus on both sides a year. And if you think about it, we're not competing with Canada. We might have aluminum or steel that we send to Canada that's turned into a part that comes back, is turned into a transmission at, say, Borgwater Automotive upstate, that then goes into a car in Canada sent to the U.S.
Yeah.
And we're importing cars from Canada, and a 25% hit on that also means every competing car company raises their prices. And we're just recovering from this, kind of global surge in car prices.
Would you say that a hit or a tariff on Mexico, or no, of Canada, would be worse than
the
effect on Mexico?
I think just because we're so integrated. To put this in perspective, we think there could be 500,000 jobs in New York State that are tied to firms in Canada. It's really Canada and New York sort of as an integrated supply chain, aluminum, actually jewelry, since Valentine's is coming up, between Canada and the Diamond District. It's in things like aluminum. By the way, our exports to China, New York doesn't export as much as we import, but we have, I think, like $250 million of things like GPS equipment, microscopes, all made by companies in New York that we don't even think about, all of which are going to face retaliatory tariffs.
This White House aside, is it common or uncommon for an administration to impose tariffs over things like border issues or fentanyl as a way to sort of get them on our side on certain issues?
Yeah, so it's unusual because we normally don't link trade to these other areas. And it's important to understand as well that, with the Trump administration, to the extent that you're using tariffs to say, urge Mexico to crack down on the border, if the tariffs don't actually go into effect, that actually is could be a clever and strategic use. The problem is if you have to actually enact the tariffs, they turn out to be far more costly than we imagine.
Yeah.
Does it become perhaps an empty threat to threaten tariffs that aren't followed through for long periods?
Yeah, and that's a challenge too, because then you might actually be forced to impose a tariff you don't really want, because sometimes when someone calls your bluff, you have to enact it. Right. The other, final thing is obviously with Mexico, you could imagine this being linked to a deal on the border. It's unclear to me what we're asking Canada to do, and sort of what a trade deal would even look like.
Yeah. Well, Professor Foudy, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your insight with us. Appreciate it.
And breaking this all down. Thanks so much.